you have friends or people who could not make it tonight, please let them know the recording will be available for them. I do have a lot to cover. I will open at the end to questions. I usually ask parents, if you have general questions, I'm happy to answer them. If they are questions specific to your child, please reach out to their assigned school counselor or to me tomorrow or anytime in the future. But I'm happy to answer any general questions that you might have. So just a couple of things. By now, hopefully your child is in my Google Classroom. The code is up there. I also put the link in there for parents. So once I email this to you tomorrow, if you don't have access to my Google Classroom, but you do want to see the things that I'm posting, you'll be able to use that link to access my Google Classroom. All right, so there's a series of things I'm going to go over tonight. Obviously some important upcoming dates. I've already emailed out some upcoming presentations that are happening. I'm going to talk a little bit about the class of 2025 and where they ended up last year, as well as senior seminar, college rep visits. We're going to talk about the application process and deadlines, admission plans, RVCC, a little bit of the NCAA, FAFSA, and the fact that the FAFSA is now a graduation requirement. It was last year, first year, that it was a graduation requirement, but I will explain that whole process. We'll talk about financial aid and scholarships, resources, and how to support your child through this process. Just by show of hands, how many are first time going through this college experience, never done this before? Okay, the majority. I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell the kids: you will survive. There will be some tears, there will be some stressful nights, but I promise you will survive. The biggest thing is, I tell them all the time, utilize your resources, ask lots of questions, don't wait till the last minute. Procrastination is really not your friend through this process. So some important upcoming dates. I did email out the flyer. I usually host 2 financial aid nights. Both I find to be really valuable. I got great feedback on them last year and the last couple of years. So the virtual financial aid night is tomorrow night. The link to register was emailed out to you. As long as you signed up through the link, you'll get a link for the Zoom call. That'll be at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. We have our fall college fair coming up on October 8th in the large gym from 6 to 8. I am working on the list of colleges that are attending. I'm hoping to have it out, the first draft, by the end of this week, if not early next week, but I will continue to update that list so you know which colleges will be coming. Finally, in October, on the 16th, we are going to be doing the down and dirty of college admissions. Some of you may have come in prior years. I usually bring this presentation in every year, so it's extremely helpful. Peter has been coming and doing this presentation for probably over 10 years now for us, and he does a great job. He's a former dean of admissions, and he has a lot of insight into what happens on the other side of the desk when the applications come in. And last but not least, our second financial aid night is going to be October 28th. This is an in-person one. It'll be here in the large CAF. It is HESA who comes in, which is the Higher Education Student Assistance Authority. They do a fantastic job. Andre, who is typically our presenter, is coming back this year. He offers any questions, insight, help that you or your family might need. He helps our families for free. Same thing with our financial aid night tomorrow night. So if you're finding after the financial aid nights, I still have more questions and I need resources, you can contact them at any time and they will help you. All right, so class of 2025, there's always a little bit of a shift, but there's a lot of overlap from year to year. So in order of our top 25 schools that they applied to: Rutgers, TCNJ, Penn State, Raritan Valley, Montclair, NJIT, Seton Hall, University of Maryland, and the list goes on and on. Sometimes there's a little bit of a shift in applications, but a lot of these are the same schools that I see year after year as far as our students and where they're applying. As far as where they're going, we had the most amount of students that are attending Raritan Valley Community College. Second came in at Rutgers. TCNJ actually moved up our list a little bit. Usually Penn State is third, but TCNJ moved up a little bit last year. So again, a lot of the same ones that they apply to, they end up attending, but we have students that are going all over the place. So there's a lot of choices out there. My biggest concern, and I tell them this all the time, is that they need to have a healthy college list, which we'll talk about in a little bit. All right, so out of our 679 students who graduated last year, we had 69.4% were four-year college bound, 22.6% ended up going to a two-year. The rest opted for gap years, trade schools, military options, or right into the workforce. A good portion of last year's students went out of state, so 266, and then 198 decided to stay in state for our four-year colleges. So this month, your child's assigned school counselor will be reaching out to them for senior seminar. So please, if your child is not a good email checker, please make sure that they're checking their email. It's important for them to understand the process of the form that they're filling out, deadlines they need to hold to, and just making sure that there's communication and dialogue with their counselor on what their future plans are. Whether it's four-year, two-year, trade, we want to make sure that every student has a plan when they graduate in June. So they just need to make sure they attend. They'll go over how to approach the application process, those deadlines, how to utilize Naviance, how to utilize the Common App, how to send their test scores, and any financial aid scholarship resources. If for some reason they should miss that meeting or they can't make the day and time, they should definitely reschedule with their counselor. Students do have the option to download their transcript at any time through PowerSchool. I always tell students that they need to download it and review it to make sure that it's accurate. Sometimes students have taken a summer course, it never got put on the transcript for some reason, or a grade change was supposed to go through. They just want to ensure that it's accurate before it's sent out to any of their colleges. This was some other information I sent out to students. In the months of September through November, we have about 120 colleges that visit us at BR here during the day. That list is in Naviance. Students can attend 5 of those visits, and it doesn't count towards their absences. After that, if they absolutely have to go to more than 5, they need to reach out to me, and I will see if I can get them set up with the other visits, but then it would count as an absence in their classes. We do have, I'm adding them every day. I literally added 3 more schools today. Students do get notified every time another college is added, so they can go into their Naviance account and register at any time. I strongly encourage students, if they did not visit the school or tour the school and the school is coming here, whether it's to our college fair or during the day, they absolutely should take advantage of that. It's a good way to demonstrate interest. It's a good way to get their questions answered. The admissions officer who comes here during the day is typically the person who's reading their application. So it's an opportunity to put a face to a name, maybe ask them specific questions about a program or the school itself. So I always encourage them to take advantage of this opportunity. Okay, so there is the FERPA form. This is something that the counselors will go over with students. If a student is applying to a non-Common App school, a few weeks back, you all probably received an email from the counseling office. It had a blank FERPA form, it had the Common App Naviance guide, and it had a reminders packet in there. All 3 of those documents are in my Google Classroom. So if your child or if you can't find it, I always try to put everything in my Google Classroom so that it's one-stop shopping for them and they don't have to go searching all over for things. If they are applying to a non-Common App school, they have to fill out that paper FERPA and have it scanned in. You sign it, they sign it, and it's scanned to that email address that you see up there. If they are only applying to Common App schools, there is a FERPA built into the Common App, so they will fill out that FERPA. Essentially, the FERPA gives us access to release all their records. You're giving us permission to send their transcripts, send their letters of recommendation. The Common App FERPA form that is built into the Common Application will ask them to read a series of instructions, check that they read it, and then they're going to get to a question that says, I waive my right to my recommendations, or I don't waive my right. I always encourage students to waive their right. They can choose either option. Waiving their right means I did not see my letters of recommendation before you got them. If a student chooses not to waive their right, few things may happen. One, the teacher may say, I can't write your letter of rec, you didn't waive your right to it. What happens a lot of times too on the college side is if they think you read your letter, they're going to dismiss your letter of recommendation and they won't take it into account in the admissions process. I always tell the students, your counselor's only writing good things about you. I'm assuming you picked teachers that are only writing great things about you, so there should be no worry about what's in the letter. So I encourage them to waive their right. What I do always tell students, because I've had this happen in the past, if within their Common App they choose they're not going to waive their right, and then they're like, oh, that's not what Mrs. Kaiser said, I meant to pick the other one. Once it's submitted, it's submitted. Common App will not change it for you. I've had students try to call and get it changed, and they won't do it. So I tell students all the time, check that first box, I waive my right, electronically sign and date it, submit it. Once they do this once within the Common App, it's done for all of them. They don't have to do it for every single college that's listed in their Common App account. It'll just automatically apply to all of those schools. Okay. A big question I'm getting, a lot of the seniors have already started meeting with me, it's kind of like, where do I start? What do I do at this point? So my biggest recommendation is they need to get organized through this process. A nice spreadsheet, usually color-coded, with all the colleges you're applying to, all the deadlines you're aiming for, and what their process is. I joke with the students all the time. Back in the day when I applied, everything went in one big yellow envelope, and my biggest worry was that the mailman was going to lose it on the way to whatever college I was applying to. They unfortunately, in the digital world, have things being sent from multiple places, and sometimes it gets a little bit confusing. So I'm going to walk through and kind of explain that a little bit further, but I do encourage them to create a spreadsheet to keep themselves organized. Organize it by your deadline. Don't try to do all your applications at once. Just start with that first one and kind of plug away with it. They should be reviewing their list and visiting the undergraduate admission page, looking at freshman admitted profiles for each college. What was the average GPA for the past year? What was the average SAT or ACT scores? Looking at acceptance rate, that's a big one for me. Acceptance rate, retention rate, as well as graduation rate. You're investing a lot of money and a lot of time wherever you're going, so it's important to look at those numbers. We're going to talk a little bit more on the next slide about healthy lists, making sure they review the process, and then using their resources. It is a lot of information at one time, so I tell them all the time, please utilize your counselor, please utilize me. Whatever we can do to kind of ease this for you and make it a little bit less stressful is what we're here for. So that healthy list. I've told students their number as far as how many schools they're going to apply to is completely up to them. The average is about 6 to 10 schools. I've seen as high as 72, which I don't recommend by any means. And I've seen as low as 1. So really, if in a perfect world, if you're applying to 8 schools, 2 of those are safeties, slam dunk. My GPA and my scores are well above their average. I feel really confident I'm going to get in. The bulk being in that realistic zone, so my GPA and my scores are right around their averages, maybe slightly above, slightly below, or dead on with their averages. And then anything that my scores are nowhere near becomes a reach, but I usually default to the acceptance rate. If the acceptance rate is 30% or lower, it's automatically a reach school. Doesn't matter how good your numbers are. It's just that competitive. Every email that I get from colleges is our numbers are up, our numbers are up, our numbers are up, and it just makes it more competitive. As far as the different pieces of the application process, so just to kind of get a better understanding of who's doing what, the students are responsible for obviously completing their college application on time, doing their essay, any supplemental questions, resumes and activities, if they have a portfolio or an audition to do, and paying the fee for the college. The transcript, recommendation, and we send our profile within the high school too. Courses they took advantage of based on what. The teachers are responsible for sending their, so the students will request their teachers through Naviance. The teachers upload them, the teachers send them. So we have no control in the counseling office as far as when those teacher letters go out. And then as far as test scores go, if they want official test scores, you're going to be sending those out through your ACT or through your SAT College Board account. Or a lot of schools are starting to allow students to self-report their test scores, in which case, if you get that option, take it every chance you get, because College Board and ACT will charge you for every single score that you want sent to every single school. So if they will let you self-report, I would encourage you to do so. All right, so Naviance is where those transcripts are going to go through. So students are going to learn this month how to request their transcripts through Naviance, how to request their teacher recs. The counselor will fill out the secondary school reports, which go along with the letter of recommendation and the letter of rec. Test scores, as I said, you're either going to go directly through the College Board or ACT, or you're going to self-report. There will be a charge for every score that you sent to every school. With the Common App, they'll submit the application, the essay, the supplements, they'll pay the fee through the Common App. And then if there are colleges, and this is a growing trend among colleges, so if a college says that they want an official transcript, that means it has to come from the school. If they say they're self-reported, what colleges figured out is it takes too long to get transcripts from high schools, so we're going to have the kids enter manually their entire transcripts. So there is a website called STARS. It's where most of your child's college portals will connect them to. So after they submit the application, within a day or two, they'll get a link saying, here's your University of Delaware portal information. You'll log in, and then you're going to self-report your grades through that portal. This is another reason why they need to check their transcripts, and they should download it, maybe have a paper copy next to them, so that they are entering everything accurately. Essentially what's going to happen, and this is a big one for Rutgers because you can only self-report to Rutgers. Your child will self-report, and then if your child gets accepted to Rutgers, at the end of the year they're going to ask us for a final transcript. They will look at that final transcript and match it to what your child entered, and if everything looks the same, we're good. If there's any discrepancies or major discrepancies, they can rescind their letter of acceptance. So that's how they're double checking when they're having students self-report. Trust me, I know, because students were like, well, I could give myself all A's in all my classes. And I'm like, right, but then when I send the transcript at the end of the year, they're gonna know you lied. So I joke with them, this isn't the one you do at 2 in the morning when you're half asleep and you're not really seeing your computer screen well. Make sure that you're slowly working on the STARS. I did tell students I will be sending out a guide probably by the end of this week or early next week. It tells them exactly how to enter things on the STARS. If they need help, if they want me to review it after they've entered it before they hit submit, I am happy to double check it and make sure that everything looks good. The only thing I ask, in the past I've had students come in and they're like, okay, Mrs. Kaiser, let's start with 9th grade. I'm going to enter, and I'm like, no, I don't have the time to go one by one of every class with you. But if you enter it and then things look wrong, we can fix it real quick and we'll get you situated and on your way, sort of a thing. So they should attempt to do it on their own first, and then I'm happy to double check it for them. On that spreadsheet that I recommend they organize themselves with, they need to organize their deadlines. Not every college is going to offer all of these deadlines. So some will have regular decision, meaning all your materials are due on a specific date and you'll get your notification on a specific date. We do have a fair amount of students who apply early decision. You can only apply early decision to one school. It's financially binding. There's a contract that gets signed with it. You would have to sign off, your child signs off, and the counselor signs off. Essentially what students are saying is, your school is the only school I want to go to. I'm not going to change my mind. I can afford to go here. And if you accept me, I'm going to take back all my other applications from all my other schools. So I always tell students you should be having a conversation with your parents about early decision before we sign off on anything. You should be reading the early decision agreement to make sure that you understand what you're signing. But again, you can only apply to one school, ED. Early action is just an earlier application with an earlier answer. Students can apply to as many schools as they want early action, so it's completely up to them. Rolling is as they get the applications, within 4 to 6 weeks you're getting an answer. So if there is a school with rolling admissions that your child is really like, I want to go to this school, I would encourage them to get it in sooner rather than later, because as they fill spots, eventually they're going to run out of them. And then open is going to be your community colleges. So as long as you have a high school diploma, you're admitted to community college. These were the deadlines that were sent out to students. It's also in that reminders packet. Essentially, if the application is due, and there's very few, if any, that have an October 1st deadline, so please don't panic, because There really are very few. We see the most around November 1st. The student is requesting their transcripts by October 9th. Does not mean that their application has to be done. It means that they need to request their transcripts, because what ends up happening is as soon as we get that first transcript request, it triggers the counselor to start writing the letter of recommendation. They typically have about 60 seniors. There's a lot of letter writing going on in the fall. So we need 15 days to make sure we're getting all of our letters done and out in time to each of the colleges. If a school also wants official test scores, I would be going in on the 9th and requesting those official test scores, because it can take them anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to send out those scores. The biggest piece is that the application is in when the application is due. So if their deadline is November 1st, that application needs to be in on November 1st. There is nothing we can do. Most schools, if a transcript comes in a few days later or a test score doesn't get there for another week or so, it's not a major big deal. If they say on the website that everything, all documents are due by such and such a date, or this is our document deadline, then that's when everything has to be in by, to be considered for that deadline. So we told them, I will typically post on my Google Classroom, hey guys, today's the day to request if you have an October 15th deadline or you have a November 1st deadline. So I do try to remind them. I will also post it on my Instagram, because I know they get those messages way faster than they read my emails. So I will try to stay on top of that, but a big part of this is them taking the ownership and the responsibility in this. All right, so on that, STARS, and you may see it was called the Self-Reported Academic Record. They changed the name of it this year. It's now the STARS, so it's the Self-Reported Transcript and Academic Record. It's the same exact thing. They're going to include their courses, the level of their courses, how many credits they earned, their weighted GPA, their official transcripts are sent by us if they need it, and we do not rank. All of this information is in the Common App Naviance guide. So I told those who attended my summer workshop, you should have that guide out next to you as you're filling out your applications, because chances are if you have a question, the answer to that question is in the guide. Same thing with my STARS guide. They'll have it next to them while they're filling it out. We talked about downloading the transcript. They just literally need to copy it word for word over. Once they've done it for one school, they now have a STARS record. They can connect it to other schools. It's not like they have to do it individually, typically for every school. So it's just a one and done sort of a thing. This is an example of what it looks like. Pretty straightforward. There's really not too many hiccups in this process. The drop-down menus are different as far as levels go. So a lot of times I see students put in academic classes as regular or standard. They should always be putting in college prep for academic courses. Honors are honors, AP is AP, dual enrollment is dual enrollment, advanced is advanced. But they shouldn't be putting regular or standard for anything, because we don't have those levels here. So that's probably the most common mistake I see. These are some of the schools that use the STARS. If you go on the STARS website, you can see the full list. A lot of them are popular for us. Clemson, Montclair, NYU, Penn State, all the Rutgers campuses, University of Connecticut, University of Delaware. A lot of these are popular schools that our students are applying to. Tampa, Virginia Tech. So there's just a little bit of extra work involved with these schools that want the self-report done. Standardized testing, everything's going to go through the College Board website for SAT, ACT. I am a big proponent. I love the test optional option. I wish it existed when I applied to school. There is a website called fairtest.org, which will tell you all of the test optional schools. There's also Compass Prep List, which will give you the most updated changes. Yes, there are some schools who have brought back the requirement for SATs or ACTs, but it is very few. There are still a good majority of schools that are test optional. So I do have students coming in saying, okay, I feel confident about sending my test scores to these schools, but not these schools. And that's the benefit of it. You get to pick and choose for all your test optional schools. I always get the question, does it hurt them? No. Every college admissions officer that I talk to will tell me if it's not going to enhance their application, tell them to leave it out. We would rather look at everything else and make a decision based on that. Even the schools that are test optional, like Rutgers, 50% of the kids who were admitted last year submitted scores, and 50% who were admitted didn't submit scores. So it just depends, and that's why I say look at those admitted profiles, look at their averages. If your child doesn't fall within the 50th percentile for them, I wouldn't be submitting test scores. Upcoming SAT dates, if anyone still does need to test, they're coming up pretty quick. November is usually probably the latest, unless your child happens to have a January, February, or March application deadline. December is still a possibility, but if they still need to test, I would register them sooner rather than later. ACT, same thing. There's a couple of dates coming up pretty quick. I already mentioned a little bit about scores. You can self-report them for certain schools. Just check the requirement. It does save a lot of money. I think it was somewhere around $14 or $15 per score for every score that needs to be sent out. So if you can self-report, then definitely do that. Request at least a few weeks in advance, because like I said, it can take them 2 to 4 weeks to get your scores out and to each of the schools. Requesting letters of recommendation. Students will automatically get a counselor recommendation as long as they completed their brag sheet in the Naviance account. The teachers, however, they're going to learn through senior seminar how to formally request them through Naviance. They have the option for both teachers to go to all of the schools on their list, which is what the majority of them will do. However, sometimes students have found they're applying to a specialty program, so they might have asked 2 humanities teachers, and then they find out that they need a STEM teacher. And so now they have a 3rd person that they're asking. They have the ability within Naviance to pick and choose which teachers they want to go to which schools. I usually tell students, if your colleges will take both, just send both to all schools. If you want to pick and choose, you do have the option to pick and choose if you need to. If students have a list right now, let's say hypothetically of 8 to 10 schools, and a month from now they add 2 more, but they've already requested their teachers, I do encourage them to follow up with their teacher and say, just want to let you know, you might have sent out my letter, but I just added 2 more schools. I just want to make sure that you got notified of that. So I do encourage them so that there's nothing lost in the process, that everything goes out in a timely manner as long as you stay in communication. This is what the letters of recommendation section looks like. So I always tell students, at the top, you'll pick the teacher that you initially asked in person and got the yes from. You will then select the schools that you want them to send their letter to. It will tell them on Naviance how many letters each school will accept. There's a very low amount that will only take 1. So in that situation, if your child wants to pick, well, I want this teacher's definitely to go to that one school, then they can choose that option. I don't have a screenshot of it, but underneath their list of schools will be a little box where they can write their teacher a note. So I always say to them, put in the note, "Dear Mr. Dalpy, thank you for agreeing to write my letter of recommendation. My first deadline is," it's a nice way of just kind of nudging the teachers a little bit about their first deadline. "If you need any other information from me, please let me know." And then they sign it, submit it. Once they submit it, the teacher gets notified that they now have access to upload their letter of recommendation. So they'll get an email right away once your child submits that request. If your child has somebody outside of BRHS, so we've had coaches, bosses, religious leaders, we have had places that students have volunteered at. I've had students who've done research with professors and the professor's willing to write them a letter of recommendation. If they have an outside recommender, they're going to request that person through the Common App. So BR teachers only get requested through Naviance. Anybody outside of BR would be requested through their Common application. They would put in the person's email address and phone number, and then that person will get the link to upload their letter directly through the Common App. So again, your child wouldn't have access to it, but it gives the outside person the ability to send it. If they are unable to do it through the Common App, your child needs to provide that person with the admissions office email address so they can email it directly to the college so that your child is not seeing the letter before it gets there. Most of the time, students are able to just do it through the Common App. It makes it super easy. But if there's any problems or questions about that, just have them reach out to me. Counselor Rec, so students are required to complete that brag sheet in Naviance. A lot of them were really good about it because I was nudging them last spring. But if they haven't done it, they should take care of that right away. It's not hard, it's just a lot of questions about them. So their counselor really understands what they want them to focus on in their letter of rec. There is a separate teacher brag sheet. Again, I tried to push all this stuff in the spring because I wanted to get some of these steps out ahead of time. But the brag sheet is in my Google Classroom if their teacher needs it. Some of the teachers have their own brag sheet and may have asked your child, like, fill out my brag sheet and get it back to me. So they just want to make sure they stay on top of getting whatever they need to their recommenders. We will do the secondary school reports. We will send the school profile. Our school profile is on the website, but I do have it linked here just so that you understand what goes out to the colleges and how they evaluate your child's transcript within the context of our high school. The essay. So I know, again, I had posted some college essay resources on my Google Classroom. So if your child hasn't started the process or doesn't know where to start or is struggling, please ask them to go to my Google Classroom because I do have some resources there for them. The essay is really the only part of the application where they get to hear your child's voice and they get to learn something about their personality, their character, what matters to them, what they're passionate about, what motivates them, depending on what topic they're writing about. I always tell students, you need to enlighten them on something that isn't already evident in the rest of your application. Be genuine, be authentic, use your voice, use your writing. More and more colleges are picking up on AI essays. They are picking up on, they have software now to detect the AI essays. I tell students all the time, AI is great if you need to brainstorm or you need to use it for kind of first initial steps, but ultimately the writing should be your writing. And that will negatively impact them if it's an AI essay. So I did ask them if they want me to review their essay and give them feedback. I'm more than happy to do that. They should be getting 3 to 4 people to read their essay before they submit it. So if it's you, if it's a best friend, if it's a sibling, if it's an English teacher here at school, if it's their counselor, if it's me, but get 3 or 4 people to give you some feedback on your essay. There should be many drafts. This is not a we write our good essay the night before the application is due, so I always tell them to do a few drafts. Make sure it ends on a positive note. It does demonstrate your personality or your character a little bit. It does take time, and in addition to that, I'm seeing more and more colleges requiring additional essays, additional supplemental questions. So for instance, if any of you have a child who's applying to University of Maryland, they will be writing a lot because there's the general essay and then there's 6 supplemental questions on top of the essay. I think I met with a student today who told me I have 24 supplemental questions that I have to do. The good part is a lot of those questions are similar and they overlap, so they can use the same answers for those, but some of them are very unique. A lot of times the supplemental questions are, why this college? The biggest mistake I see students make, especially if they haven't toured the college, is when the question is, why this college? They go on the website, they find a couple of things, and they put it into the answer, and I'm like, they know what they offer. What they don't know is why you're a good fit for their school and why you think their school is a good fit for you. So it needs to be a little bit more of a personal answer when you answer that question. If there are questions that are marked as optional, I tell students all the time, optional is opportunity. It's opportunity to give them more information. So optional is not optional in my mind. They should be answering every question they can to give them a glimpse as to who they are. Built within the Common App is the additional information section. Students have the freedom to share anything they want in this section. That gives insight into something else. So usually the way I explain it to students is if you've put your whole application together, including your essay, but you're like, Mrs. Kaiser, there's this one piece about me that it's important and I want to share it with them. And that could kind of fall under a bunch of different categories. The additional information is a good place to put that information. It shouldn't be you're just expanding on something you've already talked about, or I couldn't fit all my activities in the activity section, so I just added the other 12 in here. This really should be some new information. It is optional. If your child feels like, nope, everything's in the application, I told them everything I want them to know about me, then they can leave it blank. That's not a problem. Some of the examples that I usually give to them is, let's say you had a fantastic freshman year, and then sophomore year there was this huge decline on your transcript, and then junior year you were back up again and grades were great. Anybody who reads that transcript is going to go, what happened sophomore year? Why is there a decline? And listen, there could be a whole host of reasons for that. Maybe somebody in the family got sick, maybe there was an emergency, maybe there was an injury, maybe there was a whole host of things. So typically you want to articulate those things. I also tell students, if you had a scheduling conflict, so it's senior year, you had planned to take these 2 AP classes, your counselor called you in and said they both run at the same time, you have to pick one. That's something you should tell the colleges, is that I had every intention of taking AP this and AP that, or AP this and my symphony orchestra class, or AP this and whatever course conflicts, and I couldn't fit it all. It's good for them to know you had the intention of taking that course. What's new this year is this section was reduced, so it used to have a 650 word count, and what colleges found is that students just started giving them a second essay, and they did not want all that information. So they reduced it to 300 words. So it's definitely shorter, but again, students can feel free to utilize that section if they can't put that information anywhere else. Also new to Common App this year, there is a responsibilities and circumstances question. It has a series of check boxes. So there's things like, you know, I use the example with students of, I've had students who've said, Mrs. Kaiser, I have no activities on my list. You know, I have to get off the bus. I get my younger siblings off the bus because my parents are working. Can't do sports, can't do robotics, can't do all the other things. And so I'll say that's important for the colleges to know, because you were at home and you were taking care of your younger siblings and you were being responsible and getting their homework done and feeding them and doing all the things. So this gives you kind of a series. Most of these probably don't apply, but some do. So I tell students all the time, if none of these apply to you, then just click none of these. But if one of these falls into that category, then make sure you're articulating that to the college. It's good for them to understand your circumstances. Okay, so those special circumstance applications are going to be the ones that won't take the transcript. They're going to use the stars. So students will still have a complete college list in their Naviance account. Every single school that they are submitting an application to should be listed in their Naviance account so we know where they applied. They're not going to request a transcript though for Rutgers or any school that wants a self-report, because they're self-reporting their transcripts. So sometimes students will request Rutgers, we cancel it, and then they come down to my office in a panic. Why did you cancel my transcript? Because they won't take it from us. You have to self-report it. Similar, you know, every college has kind of, they're similar, but there's a little bit of a difference. So for instance, Penn State, which a lot of our students apply to, does not require teacher or counselor recommendations. Rutgers does not take teacher or counselor recommendations. So that's why I'm saying that spreadsheet where they organize, what do I need for every single school? What do they take? What don't they take? How am I supposed to submit it? It really is the best way to keep track of all of these things. They're also going to have a username and password for every school portal. And as we all know, passwords are not our friends. I enter mine 3 different times before I remember which password I used. So they should keep track of their usernames and their passwords throughout this process. Okay, for those students who are considering Raritan Valley, it's a slightly different process. There is no teacher letters of recommendation. There is no essay. Again, as long as you have a high school diploma. I did put a lot of links in the presentation that I find to be really helpful for Raritan Valley. They do a ton of open houses in the fall, so if your child has not been to an open house, I absolutely would encourage them to do so. The link to the application is there. They will have to do a placement test if they don't have scores that are high enough to get them out of the placement test, and they've made some modifications to the math one, which I'll talk about in a minute. RVCC has an excellent honors college, which again, there's information linked here. They do come and visit us. So Greg DeSanctis, who runs the program, actually comes over here and meets with our students who are interested in the honors college. So I'll give you those dates in just a second. A lot of times students will ask, you know, for all of your community colleges, as far as if your child decides, I'm going to go to RV and then I'm going to transfer. If they transfer to an in-state public university and they have graduated from RVCC with 60-something credits, all of those credits will transfer. They have to. If they go to a private school, if they go out of state, then colleges can pick and choose which credits they will accept. So it could set them behind. I usually tell students, if you're thinking RV, when you get to the point where you're going to transfer, you want them to evaluate your transcript from RV to see how many credits they would actually take if you're going to go to private or out of state. There is also a website, newjerseytransfer.org. It'll tell you which courses will transfer to other schools in New Jersey and which ones will not. The ideal timeline is really for students to apply in February. So if they want to apply now, they can, but if they want to wait, February is ideal. We don't submit the transcripts. They should put RVCC in their Naviance account, or if they're looking at any of the other community colleges in the state, they're all listed in Naviance. There is no test scores, no letters of rec, and then you would take the placement test after you've submitted the application. So RVCC is coming to us several times in the next couple of months. They will be here on the 25th for an information session. The Honors College comes in November. In January, they come back for another information session, and then February 10th, they actually come here to do the application with our students. So that day, the application can get done. Something new, on the placement link, you will see which scores count for your child or not to get them out of the placement test, SATs, ACTs. They have just added for English the NJGPA, which is what your child took last year. If those scores are high enough, it'll get them out of the placement test for RVCC. For math, they no longer have a math placement test. Last year they decided to get rid of it. They will use your child's final grade in whatever high school math course they took last. So if your child is taking Algebra 2 or Pre-Calc or any of the others, probability and stats, they will use that final grade to determine math placement for RVCC. NCAA, usually I'll tell students if your child is being recruited, obviously the NCAA website is really the main hub. The coaches really kind of walk students through the process of what they need and when they need it. So if they're being recruited, they just need to stay in contact. Like I said, they can download their transcript, which is usually what they come to us for, saying my coach wants my transcript. They can download it at any time through PowerSchool, send it electronically, or print it. Test scores are not required for NCAA, but may be required still for the admission of the school and for scholarship reasons. So just be aware of that. If they are being recruited Division III, they really just need to check the eligibility requirements. There are very specific requirements for Division I or II that can be found on the NCAA website. Financial aid. Okay, so financial aid has been a little bit of a mess the last couple of years. It didn't open until December for the last 2 years. This is the first year it is supposed to reopen on October 1st, which is the date that it typically always opens. The website is studentaid.gov. It is free. If you are ever on a FAFSA website and they're asking you to pay a fee, you are on the wrong website. It should always be free to submit to FAFSA. But it is up there. I would say once your child has been admitted and then you get the financial award letter, if in the letter you're feeling like they might have qualified for more, they could have qualified for more, is there anything internal we can still apply for, we're still looking for more aid, whatever the case may be, you can connect with the financial aid office at any time. But like I said, our financial aid presentations are fantastic. Both gentlemen are very well versed, way more than I am. So if you have any questions specific to you and your child, I would say absolutely reach out to them or attend those presentations. On every college website, there's a net price calculator, so you can put in your child's information and kind of get a rough estimate of what tuition is going to look like. It is a graduation requirement now, as I stated earlier. So I just wanted to make sure, because last year was the first year that this was really implemented. It led to a lot of stress in the spring, and I would like to avoid that. So the first option is, if you have every intention of applying through FAFSA, we get the notification. When you fill out the FAFSA, you can actually indicate HESA in your application. HESA will then send us a list of all of our students who have applied for financial aid. And as long as your child's name is on that list, their graduation requirement is good, you don't need to do anything else, we will be able to check them off that they've met their requirement. If you have no intention of filling out the FAFSA, there is a waiver built into PowerSchool. It's under your forms. If your child is 18, they can fill out the form. If you want to do the parent form, the parent FAFSA form is in PowerSchool. And if for any reason there is a family that is unable to complete it, if you reach out to the counselor, they can help complete it for you. There's a counselor version that we can help do it for you. It's one or the other. So as long as you've either done the FAFSA, and we know you've done the FAFSA, or you've done that waiver in PowerSchool, your child has met that graduation requirement. If you fill out the waiver saying you're not planning to apply for FAFSA, it still doesn't stop you. You can change your mind. So if you fill out the waiver today saying we're not doing it, and then a month from now you're like, oh, but I want to fill out the FAFSA, it does not take away that ability to be able to fill out the FAFSA in the future if you change your mind. So I just want to make sure, because otherwise, if we don't have this information by the spring, we are calling your child down, we are calling you, we are going through the we can't walk at graduation until we've got this graduation requirement thing taken care of. I want to avoid that stress as much as possible. There will be emails throughout the year sent out to remind you all that this does need to be completed, but I figured best to start the year off and explain it now. This way, if you wanted to go home and take care of it, you could, or if you're going to do the FAFSA, we'll get that information once you've submitted it. Scholarships. So we have a ton of different resources for scholarships. There is a monthly bulletin that is posted to the high school website. So every scholarship that we are made aware of, we put in the monthly bulletin. It also gets emailed out to students as well. Essentially, there's tons and tons of stuff out there. It's just the students have to review the requirements and then follow the process. Most of them are online applications to do the scholarships. They may have to submit an essay, they may have to submit their transcript, all those kinds of things. So it's really on the ownership of the student. There is a link up there which will take you to probably 20 other links that we have put together of different websites you can use to find scholarships. It's time consuming, I'm not gonna lie. Some of them are a little bit easier than others to navigate. I'm a big fan of fastweb.com. It's one of the ones that's on the link. But you put in your child's GPA and scores and their interests and it will match scholarships to you. Going Merry is another really good one. Again, all of these are on that link and you will have access to this tomorrow. In the spring, we will put out in March an application for any student who wants to be considered for our local scholarships. They would fill out the application so that we can award them some of our local ones. But that won't happen until March. Okay, so I know the students all worry about not getting in anywhere. And if I can reassure you all, I have not had a student not get into several of their schools as long as they have a healthy list. They're going to get into several. Then they come in my office going, Mrs. Kaiser, I got into 6, now where do I go? And I'm like, okay, well, this is a good problem to have. And then we kind of go back and look at, let's talk about what you liked about each school, and let's talk about the finances for each school, and let's talk about which one fit you academically and extracurricularly. Acceptance, obviously, that's an easy one. There are students who get deferred, so if they apply early and then they defer them to the regular decision round, they want to wait to review them with that round. That does happen. When a student gets deferred, the college will give you specific instructions of, yes, we will accept more materials like mid-year grades, or tell us any accomplishments you've done since you applied. Or they'll say, we've deferred you to regular, please do not submit any more materials. I always tell students, if they don't want materials, don't send them materials. They're saying they don't want it, they won't look at it. But you would get instructions with a deferral. I know rejection can be tough, but as we know, when certain doors close, other doors open. So obviously, I tell them all, get the pint of ice cream, do what you need to do, be sad, and then we regroup and we get back and we look at all the acceptances that you have, because there will be many. If your child is waitlisted, you want to make sure that they express to the school if they want to remain on the wait list. So if this is a school they really loved, they should be communicating via email, or a lot of times through their portal. It'll ask them, do you want to remain on the wait list? And they have to answer that question through their portal. For most students, they will have until May 1st to make their decision. So early decision, they will have to make their decision on a specified date way before May 1st, but the majority will have until May 1st to review their acceptances, all their financial award letters, and decide where they want to commit to. And then, like I said, when we get to that point where they have to choose the right one, sometimes it's going to Admitted Students Day, sometimes it's going back for another tour. I usually tell students, if you're going for campus visits, you should be keeping track, taking pictures. What did you like? What did you not like? What were the pros? What were the cons? What did you get involved in? But as they're going through these, they should really keep track of what they liked and what they did not like. It will help in the long run in kind of managing that final decision for the most part. Students should keep Naviance updated, so they'll update their results as they get them. In the spring, they'll indicate where they intend to enroll. So we will show them how to, there will be instructions sent out several times, and we will tell them how to do these steps through Naviance, so we know where to send their transcript to. If there's any questions at any time, just reach out to the counselor and we're happy to explain it, because trust me, we know we're throwing a lot of information at you. Seniors should know by now, every single one of the counselors has a You Can Book Me link, so they can book into their counselor's calendar at any time if they have questions or they need anything. They can email their counselor, they can reach out to me. I put a lot of information on my Google Classroom. Your child will be sick of seeing my name pop up in their inbox probably by November. But I try to get out as much information as I can. I try to organize my classwork in Google Classroom so that they have easy access to everything. But their counselor may have other resources on their Google Classroom. We put everything on the website. And then I started the Instagram, which is really helpful for me to get notifications out to the kids pretty quickly if there's an upcoming deadline or event or anything new that they should be aware of. So obviously, there's a little bit of a difference between what I work with students on and what their assigned counselor works with them on. So like I said, if your child has a college list and they're not really sure, do I have enough safeties, or do I have realistics on my list, they can certainly reach out to me and I will go over their list with them. I get a lot of students who will come in and say, should I send my test scores, should I not? We take a look at the numbers and what makes the most sense. I'll review essays, I'll review supplements. If they're not sure, should I put this in the additional information section? I told them they can meet with me, run it by me, I'll tell them if it seems appropriate or not. If they need assistance with the stars, any college application questions. A lot of these applications have questions that they're like, Mrs. Kaiser, I have no idea what to do with this. They should reach out to me. I will help them with it. If they have Naviance or Common App issues, if they need additional resources, if they want to iron out how do I make that final decision, and if for some reason they should need additional scholarship or financial aid resources, I will see what else I can find for them. But we really do try to put out a lot of scholarship information to them all. Students have the ability, as long as they're in my Google Classroom, which the majority of them are, to book an appointment with me at any time. So I have a You Can Book Me account just like their counselor does. I just usually ask them to please book it during a non-academic class. I don't want them missing important things. They can come during gym, study hall, electives, whatever the case may be, but I just don't want them missing important content. Okay, so tips for how you survive this process. I am a big proponent, and the kids have heard me say it. You are a senior in high school. You are about to leave your home for the most part and go be on your own. And colleges are not going to talk to mom and dad. Colleges, financial aid office will talk to you, but everyone else is going to talk to you. I want to see them taking ownership. I want to see them asking the questions that they need and being proactive. So really allowing them to take ownership, encouraging them to utilize their resources. They're going to be on a campus having to reach out for help for various things. So they need to know how to do that. Please do not contact colleges on behalf of your child. It doesn't bode well for them. If they have a question, they can call the school. You can sit there, you can be supportive, but they need to pick up the phone, they need to call and ask the question, or email them directly. I would say set aside a once a week check-in. I know this gets really stressful for them at times. Usually it's my procrastinators who have a meltdown in November because they procrastinated. But if they're chipping away each week, spending an hour, a half hour, whatever it is, working on their applications, this will go pretty smoothly. they should be checking their email on a regular basis. We send out a lot of stuff. I wish I could say it wasn't so much, but we try to keep them apprised of everything that's going on and opportunities that are available to them. They need to follow the financial aid deadlines, if there are any for their schools. On some of the colleges' websites, it'll say, we want your financial form in by such and such a date. So they need to pay attention to that as well. And remind them to check their application portals. So the portal is really going to be how the colleges start to communicate with them. If there's a delay in the college getting their transcript, or they haven't received a letter of rec, or they're missing information that they need, that is how they're going to notify them. It's also the way they're going to notify their answer of whether they got accepted or not. So they're going to spend a lot of time in their portals and in their emails. They just don't want to miss things.